Hey there, welcome to Task Force Admiral. I am slightly late to the party, as I was unfortunately out with the flu, but I'm feeling much better, so I'm happy to get back to work. Now, Task Force Admiral, what do we have today? We have a demo, and this demo coincides with their Kickstarter. The Kickstarter doesn't mean that the game is in trouble, it's just that they want to have a physical box, a physical product out there. And that is why they decided to launch a Kickstarter, which so far has been very successful. Link down below in the description if you want to have a look at that. Of course, the game itself will also become available eventually. Eventually being, I believe, targeting late 2025, early 2026 as a full digital release. However, if you want to have the full physical copy, then you can get that through the Kickstarter. Now, this demo is a beta, which means there will be some things that might not entirely work. They don't have the full functionality of the game, I mean beta and demo. We do have a single scenario, but I'm going to go for the battle generator. The battle generator allows you to set up a sort of skirmish, if you will. And this places you in command of Task Force 17, centered around the fleet carrier Yorktown. Now, you can say I want to have one carrier or two, the same for the enemy, and we're going to have a threat axis to the north. That's all I know right now. So the rest is going to have to get detected by our own aircrafts. We're going to have to send out some search parties. Once those search parties have actually found something that we can strike, or that we need to defend against, we will have to get on that and make sure that the carrier is defended and that we can do our own little bit of dishing out. Now, what do we have to manage the aircraft carrier and said task force? Well, quite a lot of different things here. I found it a bit complex initially. Over here we have the strategic map. That is what we have here. And over here in the middle of this formation is Yorktown. This is our aircraft carrier. She's escorted by 5 heavy cruisers and 8 destroyers. And of course her own air wing. Although currently they're not actually flying. You can see over on the right hand side what the speed is, what the course is. The current depth of the aircraft carrier, thank God, is surfaced. I would prefer my aircraft carrier to stay surfaced at all times, but maybe the Japanese are going to try and change that depth. As for the vitals, once the battle actually kicks off, you can see that we potentially might take damage, fire and flooding. And of course, once you start taking hits, I imagine that some of these dots from propulsion, steering and ammo might go down. We also have a couple of our escorts, the Anderson, the Morrison, the Morris, the Hammond, the Russell, the Minneapolis, the New Orleans, Astoria, Chester, Portland, Phelps, Dewey, Farragut and Aylwin. We have lots of ships keeping this aircraft carrier safe. If you want to have a look at those units in 3D, you can. Over here we can see the aircraft carrier, and as it is just 0500, it's morning. You can see that as we look towards the east, the sun is coming up. So that's quite nice. What else do we have? Well, the fleet board. This is where you can manage your formation. Right now we're on a course of 111, so we're heading east. And with that, the formation has positioned itself to travel east with the carrier. If you wish, you can reorient some of these ships to change formation. You can, especially if you know where the threat's going to come from, reorient some of those escorts to have potentially better fields of fire against aerial threats towards the north. What else can we do from here? Well, we can have defensive air ops. This is where you have your active air patrols. So I'm going to say I want to have a new combat air patrol, and with these dots, it's basically drag and drop and set how you want the formation to be patrolled. If you want to, you can have that going on directly above the carrier. If you don't know what the vector is going to be, like where the threat's going to come from, maybe you want to have a big box. I know that the threat is somewhere to the north. So I'm going to say I want to have a patrol, something like this. And I can drag and drop that like that. How many of my aircraft do I want to assign? Let's go with the patrol strength of 3 at an altitude of 13,000 feet. And time until next rotation is going to, time between rotations is going to be an hour and a half. Except, it is, however, 0500. And that means we cannot launch aircraft just yet. We're going to have to wait an hour, and at 0600 we'll start launching aircraft. this air patrol is going to go up, and by the time that we actually have the aircraft coming down, another combat air patrol will have already been launched, and they will just alternate this all by themselves. Once a threat's been detected, the fighter direction tab comes in, and that is when usually the flight deck officer is going to order the aircraft to intercept enemy bombers. You can also scramble additional fighters by just taking the box away, scrambling all fighters, defending the base, basically telling your planes what you want them to do. If you don't want to micromanage all that, leave the FDO in charge. Next, fleet defense. Sorry, the flight deck. The flight deck is where you can see what sort of flight deck stats we have going on. Are all of our elevators operational? And the answer is currently yes. This goes for the Yorktown, but if you have more aircraft carriers, you can drag and drop from the list. Our hangar is fully operational. We have a floor capacity of 60, and I have storage capacity of 0 for 20. The deck timeline shows that right now there's not much going on, because right now there isn't anything planned, with the exception, of course, of that air patrol. As for missions, this is where you can see missions that we have planned. Again, currently none. Squadrons, how are the various different squadrons doing? How many of each different aircraft type do we have? How many of the pilots do we have? You can see that for some we have more pilots than we actually have aircraft. And then the stores, like how much are we carrying? Or rather, how operational is that? By the looks of it, we are doing quite fine. And then if you want to leave the flag plot and just watch the action, you can do that right there. There is the Yorktown and all of her friends. Now, when it comes to our ability to find the enemy, we're going to have to set up a search. We know that the enemy aircraft carrier is somewhere towards the north. So I'm going to say there is an enemy aircraft carrier that I want to search for, somewhere towards the north. It might not be exactly 600 kilometers out. That would be quite far. Let's say I want to search out to 400 kilometers. I want to have... Well, I can do it with one aircraft, if I so desire. But that's going to take a while. You can set up additional aircraft. And you can also say that, for example, the step size is going to be a little larger. So that you're going to be operating in basically a 90-degree search cone. Like that. You can see that this is going to have a desired takeoff of 0601, and that means that's the earliest time that we can start launching aircraft. I will accept that, and now we can start maneuvering and basically start waiting for things to happen. If you have a look down here at the bottom, you can see we are Task Force 17, we are currently operating as Yorktown, and over towards the far right hand side you can see at 0554, the search mission is going to get readied. The spot starts at 0554-58, and that is when we're going to start to see aircraft being moved into location. After that, they will start taking off at 0601, and I am also expecting our combat air patrol. There we go, 0603-20. It's going to take 65 seconds to have the combat air patrol take off. Alright, let's jump ahead a little bit and get ready for that aircraft takeoff. As morning starts to dawn on the aircraft carrier, she's turning into the wind, and she's starting to bring all of her aircraft back so that we can start to use this flight deck for that search mission. The sooner we can find the Japanese, the sooner we can start preparing a strike, and preparing to defend ourselves against them, because they too will be eager to try and deal damage against Yorktown. You can see she's turning over to port, turning into the wind. That's what we're going to need in order to launch aircraft. Keep this in mind as you are preparing maneuvers for your formation, because sometimes launching an aircraft, or rather a whole flight of aircraft, might not come at the most opportune time. And as an aircraft carrier is launching aircraft, it might not want to dodge, which of course is going to make you extremely vulnerable to things like torpedo attacks as well as dive bombers. Now, as for the graphics of this game, I really like it. I mean, you got the moon on one side, we have the sun over on the other, and the graphics, they look very, very crisp. If you want to know what the sort of system specs I have to allow it to run like this, down below in the description you can see all the system specs that I have. I think the game looks really good. And what I especially prefer about it is that it continues to look good. It continues to have a good FPS, despite being quite intense, which, as you will see a little later, with gun battles and lots of things happening. Whereas Sea Power sometimes slows down a bit, this game so far does not seem to have that particular issue. Now, let's speed things along a little bit. Get all those aircraft off the deck, or at least moved back. This should be the end of the spot phase. And now we're going to be preparing the takeoff. The beauty of this whole situation is that you can select from either watching the Yorktown itself or from air. So I can select, I want to have this guy as my point of observation. Normally spacebar would be play, but in this game not as much. Look at that. See you later, Yorktown. We have some things to hunt. We have some Japanese to find. Of course, they're not going to do this alone. This is just part of a couple of these, what did I pick? Dive bombers, which are taken off. They're not actually packing anything. They're just empty, mostly. Because all we need to do is search. Once we know where to start bombing things, that's when we start to load these things up with all sorts of ordnance. As for the fleet, I'm pretty happy with their current positioning, because as far as I was able to tell, they seem to have all the corners of the aircraft carrier pretty heavily covered. You can see the cruisers are here. We could, if we wanted to, detach a couple of ships from the escort and use those to go on the offensive. However, it's mostly focused on aircraft carriers. Like, it's not impossible. You can definitely go with a couple of cruisers on the offense if you wish. But the distances in this game tend to be quite long. Like, you're engaging over a pretty long time horizon, as well as distance. And as such, like, it is not impossible to have, let's say, an engagement over, oh, I don't know, maybe 200 to 300 miles. 200 miles at 20 knots. That's a 10-hour sail for a couple of cruisers. At which point the battle might be long gone. Might be long done. So in this case, yes, I suppose it's possible to go on offense with a couple of ships. I personally wouldn't really say it's that likely. Here we have Cap 1, Combat Air Patrol 1, and Combat Air Patrol 2 should probably be standing by. Wait, you're not up, are you? That wouldn't... Yeah, they're on the deck. They're on the deck. There we go. They're now taking off. These guys are basically our first line of defense. Once I find that there's a whole flight of Japanese aircraft coming in, I'm going to scramble the rest of my fighters, and I'm going to tell them all to start nailing Japanese bombers. After almost an hour, I have found something. A surface combat task force. We have seen them do apparently all sorts of maneuvers. There is a destroyer, a couple of small ships, and 2 large. Don't exactly know what. I do know that it is this guy over here who is currently doing the detecting. So maybe we can even observe this aircraft carrier group in 3D. Supposedly, it's going to be down there somewhere, but I'm not really seeing it. Anybody see a nice flat top we can exterminate? Any aircraft carrier that we can bomb? Not sure. Anyway, that has to be the enemy. This is going to mean a couple of different things. One, I'll need to be prepared for threats coming in from here. Two, I'll need to start preparing a strike on this particular location. We know that they're 160 miles out, and they're doing a speed of 7 knots, which is fairly slow. So let's start organizing a strike. What are we going to strike? Well, we're going to do a naval attack, and we're going to go after Task Force, well, Contact 006 here. That's going to be our target. Target ID, that one. Target type, surface ship. Range, warning, 320 miles. Yeah, that's, of course, back end 2. What are we going to send? Well, we're going to send a couple of torpedo bombers after them. Let's make that a couple of these. I'm going to say you're going to have an escort of a couple of F4s, because I cannot really risk sending out all of them, for the problem that there will most likely be some sort of response that might already be inbound. Hence the problem. I can also send a flight of dive bombers after them. Their best possible date, 0711. I can say yes, I'm going to greenlight that operation. This means that we will have 12 torpedoes going that way. Mark 13 1,000-pound bombs, 12 of those, and 24 100-pound bombs. For a total of 30 aircraft, escorted by 6 F4F. Greenlight the operation. Now, this is going to mean that the aircraft carrier is going to get a little busy, because we're going to start to spot and make sure that we have all the aircraft assigned to the deck, as well as in the right spots. Then we're going to start launching, and after that we're going to start striking them, and we will see Combat Air Patrol 1 already start to make their way home. This Combat Air Patrol is currently still slightly northwest of my location. I'm going to say I want them slightly better positioned now that I know what's going on. Let's remove this. The defensive air op. Push that cap a little bit over to the side. And make it slightly smaller. There. These guys are going to keep on patrol. Something that I don't really know how to do is cancel the flight of recon birds. So I guess we'll just have to wait for those guys to come home at some point. I'm still surprised that I was not able to visually detect the contact here. But, well, the guy apparently did see enough so that we know now what to strike. All we gotta do now is get the whole aircraft carrier ready for that particular strike mission. If you find that you cannot push out of this screen, just make sure you click this one away, and then you'll be able to go back to any of the other viewers. So let's say and have a look at the Yorktown herself. There we go, we're already starting to get a couple of aircraft relocated. Yeah, we know that there's an enemy aircraft carrier force, fine. Turning into the wind.
Romeo, red leader, bogey, vector
Bogeys.
50,
Great.
mile.
Where?
10 plus.
Here. 1. That's a scout. They're looking for me just as much as I'm looking for them. Now, this is when I said that I was not able to turn away because my aircraft carrier is preparing for launch. So, I cannot really do that much to change my course. This Combat Air Patrol is probably not going to intervene. Let me see. Yeah, they're on patrol. Yeah, just leave them on the FDO. Yeah, they are going to get vectored over to intercept. You can see this over here on the right hand side, single bogey. And they are getting told where they need to go in order to intercept that particular target. Of course, if the Japanese start losing an aircraft there, then they might know that something is indeed up. And that maybe that is an area worthy of investigation. With force. Let's get the rest of the carrier wing standing by. I mean, not the whole carrier wing. I don't want to launch everything. I just want to have my aircraft pack, well, my strike package out there. And then prepare my fighters, because I'm expecting an inbound attack. Here we go. Takeoff should start at 0711. I guess we're a little late. More and more aircraft being poured into this deck. TF-17 has been detected by an enemy air search asset. Great. So that means we will be encountering some hostiles. Well, in a fairly timely manner, most likely. The real question is, when are we going to see them come in? Because that, I don't know yet. Is he dead? Last update, 2 minutes ago. Reported by USS Aylwin. How's my patrol doing? Crap. Why did you ditch? I guess he might have gotten shot down. So that was the guy who actually flew over the enemy aircraft carrier and their patrol group, and probably their fighters too. And they didn't exactly take kindly to that. Go figure. Now here comes the naval strike, the dive bombers, the torpedo bombers, and the escort. You can click on any of these and just watch what they're doing either on the map or in the 3D view. For now, we're just most likely starting to form up. We're preparing everything ahead of circus. And once everybody's ready, well, we're going to town on the Japanese. As our strike is moving out, our first combat air patrol is already coming back in, preparing to land right back on the carrier. And of course that other flight of 3 additional F4Fs is preparing to take off to take their spot. These pilots are going to get a bit of rest. They're going to get their aircraft turned around, refueled, and I might need them a bit sooner than these guys might like. There we go, into the arresting wire. And probably number 3 is going to be right behind them. Just look at that deck go up and down. And I guess that this sea state's actually not that bad. Nothing but respect for these pilots capable of landing on aircraft carriers. Yep, there's the third guy coming in. Bassett, I think. Yep. Gorgeous, isn't it? Alright, how's our strike doing? Well, our strike is outbound. However, we don't exactly know where they are presently. They don't have that many locations to be in. Because, well, it's a fairly sizable task force that you need to look for. It's not like it'll suddenly up and vanish, but they do move. So you're gonna have to keep in mind that the longer you go without contact, the longer it is possible for them to move away from their last known position. Much like they would, for example, in sea power. So keep that in mind as you're trying to hunt these things down. Maybe it might be worth it to send a smaller engagement party out first and keep an eye on them, and then send the second wave. That especially goes, I'd say, for longer ranges. There we go. Task Force 17 has ceased air ops and is resuming its normal course. I could increase the size of my combat air patrol. How many aircraft do I still have standing by? Like, what do I presently have ready? I'm looking for fighters. I got 24 pilots and 24 planes. Yeah, but 12 are assigned. I got 12 available. And 12 aircraft available. So if it comes to it, I should be able to get ready to fight back with about 12 fighters. And of course, anything that breaks through is going to have to get dealt with by the AA screen from the whole defensive task force. Let's hope it doesn't necessarily come to that, but this is an era where strikes used to be pretty sizable, where you used to have fairly large attacks going on. In the meanwhile, the rest of our strike is en route. Everybody in formation. They are also joined by the other torpedo bombers here. And they have their own escorts. McCormack, Madsen, and Adams. Yep, they're flying above the rest of the attack wing. Attack wing flying relatively lower, and these guys keeping the skies clear. Right now, that's a peaceful job. But the moment that we start to encounter a hostile combat air patrol, that is most likely going to change very quickly. Inbound, as detected by the USS Farragut. Thankfully, we got them early on radar. They're 103 miles out relative to the carrier, or relative to the Farragut, I should say. And it's going to be 20 plus aircraft. So, scramble, scramble, scramble. This means we're going to launch all the fighters. The fighters are going to be automatically vectored over towards this incoming wave. And I guess we're just going to be basically waving at each other as we move to our respective strike targets. Them to my aircraft carrier and mine to theirs. It's going to be a very interesting display of aerial operations here, as I don't think my fighters will engage theirs, because that's not their job. They were supposed to escort, not engage. The rest of the combat air patrol here is already being moved in. And let me move over to Yorktown. Yorktown turning into the wind. And here come the rest of the F4s. At 0801, we're going to start launching our fighters. Considering that we met in the skies here, I think they also know that I'm inbound for them. So there's a very good chance that the Japanese are also scrambling their fighters. And as such, it is quite likely that my F4s are going to be pretty busy. Oh, hold on, we're actually doing an air battle. Or we did? Let me check. You guys were engaging targets. Yep. Looks like we're hunting down a Japanese fighter here. Potentially two of them. Ooh, keep on them. Don't let him get away. It looks like my entire strike package is still alive. At least most of the sections are. Some of them are evading. Where's the second section? You're not on deck. Yeah, they're definitely trying to fight each other. My fighters and theirs. But of course, that's not really the priority right now. It'd be great to get rid of them, certainly. Because that means that these fighters escorting their strike package aren't going to interfere that much with my fighters trying to take down their actual strike. Come on. Yes. Ooh, I thought he got him. Get him! Come on, come on, come on, you got him! Somebody's definitely lighting him up. seeing as this is going to turn into quite a long engagement, this is where I'm going to leave you for the first part. Tomorrow you can see the next part, unless you're a member, in which case you can see it right now. Not a member yet? Don't worry, hit the join button. For $1 a month you can support my work, as well as immediately watch all channel member only videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for more.